Knights roll.
And then who's Rogue 36073? Okay, Rogue, I'm going to ask another time. Who's Roge or
Joe, that might be our independent auditor, Chris Rogers.
My apologies. I was on mute. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Mr. Assistant City Clerk, it looks like everybody is muted. About 1 minute to roll call. Will you unmute everybody for the roll call?
Yeah, I can do that.
Could you just make sure that you could hear me, please, again?
Vice
I can
President,
hear. Oh, go
Vice
ahead.
President McMenim, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we're going to begin with the special city council meeting, and then we will go into committee of the whole. Madam Vice President, so after we adjourn committee of the whole, we'll immediately right into the special city council meeting, go right into committee of the whole. Please.
Yes, so we'll all just stay on the same Zoom phone call.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. City Clerk, are you ready? It is 8 p.m.
I'm ready.
Waltham City Council will come to order. Clerk, call the roll.
George A. Darcy III.
Present.
Karen Dunn.
Present.
Sean T. Durkee.
Present.
Kathy Ann Harris.
Present.
Joseph P. LaCava.
Present.
Anthony LaFosse.
Present.
Randall J. LeBlanc. Randall J. LeBlanc.
Present. I was muted. My apologies.
Christine A. Mackin.
Present.
John J. McLaughlin.
Present.
Kathleen B. McMenim.
Present.
Patrick J. O'Brien.
Present.
Jonathan Paz.
Present.
Thomas M. Stanley.
Present.
Carlos A. Vidal.
Present.
President Paul J. Brasco.
Present.
15 present.
All rise. Will the city clerk recites the council prayer?
Almighty God, we ask thy guidance in all our deliberations. Please remain standing while the city council president leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United
United
States of
America
and
and
to the republic
for which
for which
it
it stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
Please remain standing. Councilor Randy LeBlanc for a moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would like to ask for silence for our veterans and troops fighting for our freedom all over the world. And in addition, I'd like to extend this moment of silence to all first responders, medical staff, and nurses assisting those in need, all those that have been affected negatively to it and through the sickness and loss of family members. Plus, I would also like to point out a special thanks to all of my council colleagues who this weekend donated their time and volunteering to pass out food to all those in need, and extend it to the Lions Club for sponsoring the event, and shout out to the mayor for putting the whole entire event together and directing everyone in what to do. Thank you.
Moment of silence, please. You may be seated. This special meeting of the Waltham City Council on May 18th, 2020 at 8 p.m. is being transmitted live on the City of Waltham YouTube channel and on the Waltham Community Access Corporation MAC channel, channel 43 for Verizon subscribers, channel 98 for Comcast subscribers, and channel 15 for the RCN subscribers. It's a special meeting of the City Council to present the budget for the FY21 year. Clerk, call the read of the call of the meeting.
Notice a special meeting of the City Council. Under the provisions of Section 3-10 of the City Charter, I hereby call a special meeting of the City Council. The purpose of the meeting is for submission of my fiscal year 2021 budget recommendations with associated documents, communications, and ordinance. Date, Monday, May 18th, 2020. Time, 8 p.m. or soon thereafter. Location, remotely from City Hall, 610 Main Street, Waltham, Massachusetts. No other items will be submitted. Respectfully submitted, Jeanette A. McCarthy, Mayor. Dated May 14, 2020.
Normally, this is my favorite time of the year, the presentation of the budget. But here we go. The mayor is on the line. I believe, Madam Mayor, are you here with us?
Yes, Mr. President, I am.
Madam Mayor, welcome to the remote City Council meeting of May 18th, 2020. Your
Hope to see
presentation
you
of the budget, you have the floor.
I hope to see your lovely faces in person pretty soon for meetings.
I hope to too as well.
Okay, May 18, 2020. I filed these documents with the city clerk earlier this afternoon. To the City Council, FY 2021 budget summary. Dear councilors, I would like to thank the city auditor, assistant city auditor, and business manager for their hard work in assembling the departmental requests, which totaled $295,610,936, and in formulating the mayor's recommendations in the amount of $873,104 for programs and services contained within the 29 program budgets. The budget is available on a flash drive, which will be delivered with your council packet on Thursday. Tonight, the city auditor will email the city and school budgets to you. To save money, hard copies are available only on request. The FY 2021 budget has a net decrease of $174,213, which is a net decrease of 0.06% over last year's budget, according to the attached budget-to-budget comparison and revenue expenditure pie charts. Since the pandemic has started, I prioritized all departmental spending for pandemic purposes and other necessities only. Now, how we did the budget process was to start with level funding of the departmental requests from last year, the department budgets that were approved last year. All vacancies were put on hold. Then we had a 5% reduction in the B accounts. The only items added were those necessary to pay in the next fiscal year. The holding of vacancies accounted for significant budget savings. In the school department, the focus was on funding classroom priorities and Wi-Fi technology. I have stated that the CARES Act funding will not go to the city's general fund, but will be utilized by the school department, subject to the school committee's approval of what to do with it. Some of the major increases are as follows. Education, $1.3 million. Debt service, $1,186,015. Pensions, $560,835. MWRA assessments, $308,127. Solid waste, $150,000. Collective bargaining contingency, $1.2 million. On the revenue side, the city auditor looked at the city receipts, building permits, hotel motel tax, meals tax, and other, and the historical revenue decreases during the 3 prior recessions. He contacted some of his colleagues in other communities, and they all concurred that a 20% reduction in state aid is likely at this point, which is included in the budget figure. This figure will be finalized later when the state budget process is completed. Revenue estimates are subject to change prior to setting the tax rate in November, which we will monitor that together. I know you will, City Council, as well as the auditors and I. Additionally, the Assistant City Auditor and Business Manager examined the capital accounts to determine which accounts can and should be closed out. Shortly, I'll be forwarding a request regarding the same. There is one compensation ordinance change enclosed. In our meeting, the City Council President and the Finance Chair, we had a meeting last Friday, that they will be looking into reorganization opportunities, which is in the council's purview. I'm available to answer any questions you may have regarding the above. And the only other thing I'll say is by holding the vacancies and not filling them, we were able to achieve about $3.6 million to offset the severe revenue picture that we have right now. Now, the city auditor and his team and I am available to either meet with the council in committee, whatever happens, in the coming weeks. I did want to try to get the budget in the regular manner that I do, to give the council an opportunity to go through their regular process. Under the pandemic and under the regular statute, I could wait, for a long time, but I've never done that since I've been mayor. So, Mr. President, that is my presentation at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could just remind those that are participants in this remote meeting that if you would mute yourself for any background noises being picked up and interrupting the meeting. So if you could place yourselves on mute, if not speaking, that'd be greatly appreciated. Madam Mayor, thank you for the presentation of the budget. We know we are in good hands fiscally responsible with you as a leader, but these are dire times for the city as we move forward through this pandemic and healthcare crisis within our community. As you mentioned, the chairman of the Finance Committee, Chairman McArthy, myself, your office, and you and Mr. Centofanti gathered together just to discuss the initial steps of some of these things just the other day. I spoke with Chairman McCarthy about the process moving forward, where the hearings, we talked about actually having a smaller meeting and Finance Committee meeting to hear from department heads in City Hall as we move forward with the budget process. I'll this time recognize the chair of the Finance Committee for a moment if he wishes to address about how we will move forward with the process of the budget. Chairman McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as you had previously stated, we met Friday and got a brief overview of what we will be looking at going forward. After speaking with Mr. Centofanti and a few members of Finance and yourself, we are hoping to bring in some of the larger divisions in the city to bring them into City Hall and host a formal budget hearing. Some of the smaller departments, we would hope to possibly set up an evening or an afternoon to do some Zoom calls to make it more efficient. These are items and notes that we're going to talk about later this evening in Finance, where we will have a full discussion and dates, times will be set, and we will be voting on certain things then. This will be on this call after a committee of the whole, where we will be able to map out the full future of this, and anyone who is interested who is not on Finance Committee is more than welcome to sit in and partake in what we plan to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, that we are trying to limit the amount of people and the exposure in City Hall at this time currently. So during those budget hearings, we're going to try to map out and work out a process for those people and those councilors, our colleagues that are not on the Finance Committee, whom many of them attend the budget hearings regularly. And so we want to have the opportunity to keep it safe for everybody and have the opportunity for everybody to participate. So we'll work with a process with the chairman, Madam Vice President, and I will discuss with the members of the Finance Committee as well as other councilors. So, sorry about that. The opportunity for questions is not now from councils, although I do want to request of the city council members if they will request a hard copy of the budget, would you let me know so that I can make sure that those are delivered to you promptly?
Mr. President, I hate to interrupt you, but there's something wrong with your transmission. So I'm gonna mute myself again, but people need to mute because it's not coming out.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. For some reason, there's an echo. Mr. Assistant City Clerk, can you hear me?
I
You are-
can.
I can hear you, Paul. I muted everyone, so you just unmuted yourself.
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna put myself back on mute.
So I do apologize. There's some kind of a background in the audio transmission. I was saying that if councils request a hard copy of the budget, would you please let us know so that we can get those to you promptly? This is not the opportunity to question the mayor with regards to the budget. There'll be that opportunity during the Finance Committee budget hearings. That being said, there are no new matters before the City Council during this special meeting this evening.
Mr. President,
Mr.
I just have a question. With respect to all of the communications that were sent by the mayor today, are those going to be forwarded to are those going to be referred to committee?
Yes, all of the matters with regards to the fiscal year 2021 budget, all matters and the budget itself will be referred to the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Further matters for discussion, there being none before the City Council, the chair will accept a motion by the members. Again, Mr. Vizard, if you would just unmute everybody, that'd be greatly appreciated so that somebody can make a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Vice President McMenim, on the motion to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed
Aye.
or object? The ayes have it. The special City Council meeting of May 18th, 2020 is adjourned at 8:16 p.m. Thank you all. The committee of the whole will take place immediately following. So if you'd remain there and in this chat room.
This is the chair of the committee of the whole. When the admin of the Zoom meeting tells me we're ready to go, then I will open the meeting.
Madam Vice President, I am ready whenever you are.
Thank you, Councilor Vizard. The time is 8:16 and it is Monday evening, May 18th. The matter of the committee of the whole will come to order. This meeting is being live broadcast through a Zoom medium and on YouTube. And excuse me. And so all members of the City Council will answer the call of the roll. Will the clerk of the committee, Mr. Santafanti, please call the roll?
Yes, President Brasco,
Present.
Councilor Darcy, Councilor Dunn,
Present.
Councilor Durkee,
Present.
Councilor Harris,
Present.
Councilor LaCava,
Present.
Councilor LaFosse,
Present.
Councilor LeBlanc,
Present.
Councilor Mackin,
Present.
Councilor McLaughlin,
Present.
Councilor O'Brien,
Present.
Councilor Paz,
Present.
Councilor Stanley,
Present.
Councilor Vidal,
Present.
Vice President McMenim.
Present. Do we have a quorum, Mr. Clerk?
We do, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. That being said, the clerk will call the first matter.
Approval of the minutes of the meeting, April 21st, 2020.
Motion for approval.
Who made that motion?
Council Brasco.
I'm sorry, who?
Council Brasco.
Councilor Brasco makes a motion for approval of the minutes. On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. The clerk will call the next matter.
Approval of the minutes of the meeting, May 4th, 2020.
Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion
Council
for
Brasco makes a
approval.
motion for approval.
Name, please.
Council Brasco.
Thank you, Council President Brasco makes a motion for approval of those minutes. On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. The clerk will call the next matter, please.
A request to authorize the mayor to sign the project scope and budget agreement between the city of Waltham and the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
The Councilor Brasco makes a motion that we hear from all off-committee members, including the mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Is the mayor on the line?
Yes, and I believe also Lorraine Finnegan is available, the architect.
Thank you very much, Mayor. How would you like to proceed? Would you like to give us an explanation of what this matter is, please?
Okay, so this is the project scope and budget agreement that is required by the Massachusetts School Building Authority. If you recall, back in September 2019 and later, the City Council in order number 34551 agreed to appropriate the amount of $374,567,386 to fund the Waltham High School project. So most people, councilors are aware that the Massachusetts School Building Authority requires you to set out the budget prior to proceeding. So in the past, when there was the old School Building Authority, you basically went out for bid and then you went for the funding all along, and that's when they granted the funding. But now the School Building Authority requires you to set out the maximum budget, and those are contained not only in the agreement that basically goes through everything that we have to do during the scope of the project, but also there are 3 papers that I would have to sign. One would be the MSBA rate reimbursement calculation, which lays out what the base points are, the income factor, the wealth factor, the poverty factor. So that comes to a subtotal of 61.13 reimbursement rate. And then the incentive is for maintenance as well as construction manager at risk. So that's 1.58 points, another point, and energy efficiency for green schools. So the total incentive points of 4.58. So the MSBA reimbursement rate for this, that's one paper, is 65.71. And I have to sign that as well as the school committee chair and the superintendent of schools. The other one is actually a layout of the, and there's several attachments all with this, but it's a layout. I'm just going through the papers that have to be signed that actually identifies the items that are included in the board authorization. The board authorized an estimated total facilities grant of $118,373,814 on a total project budget, as I indicated. I apologize for the noise with motorcycles, of $374 million. So it's all broken down there. These are MSBA forms, and in this case, the chair of the school building committee, which was already authorized, as well as superintendent of schools, the chief executive officer, and the chair of the school committee have to sign. So that's 2 of the documents. And the last document itself is the project scope and budget agreement. Now, all of these paperwork, this is part of the filing that was done with the schematic design that was presented to the City Council for the loan authorization last year. This vote, the PSBA, is part of the MSBA process for the funding agreement. It does not change the budget or documents that were previously presented last fall. This is a requirement of the MSBA, and it's basically making an agreement with the City of Waltham for the maximum funding. In other words, the maximum budget. If something goes outside of the budget, we're responsible for that. A lot of the paperwork indicates that. And so they set forth what their maximum is. Now, if something happens and things come in and the prices are lower, then they reduce their amount. But it basically is the agreement that MSBA uses for all cities and towns seeking subsidy of the school building assistance program. Madam Vice President.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Is that your presentation for the evening or for now?
Yes, and unless Ms. Finnegan has more detail than I, but I'm just saying, if there's any
Ms.
questions.
Finnegan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Good evening, Vice President and Council. No, the mayor has exactly got it correct. This is the contractual agreement, so to speak, between the MSBA and the city of Waltham, putting into stone the agreements made through schematic design, through the maximum facilities grant, and through the city's authorization of the loan amount, and just requiring that this is the scope, project, and budget that will be moved forward.
Thank you very much. Wish of the committee.
Motion for approval.
To approve.
Who made the motion, please?
Motion for,
I'm sorry, who?
Counselor Paz moves to approve.
Councilor Paz moves to give the mayor the authorization to go forward on this agreement.
Madam Vice President, I have my hand raised.
Councilor, so we have a motion on the floor. Yes, Councilor Dunn, I recognize you. On the motion, Councilor Dunn.
I have a couple of questions. I'm not ready to make a motion to approve yet.
I'm sorry, you cannot make a motion to approve. The motion has already been made.
Okay.
City Councilor Paz, you have the right to ask any questions you wish to ask. Councilor, I recognize you. Councilor Dunn, you can ask your questions.
Okay. So may I ask, is this a draft document or is this the actual document to be presented to MSBA, and is it ready for signature?
The document that you received is the execution copy that should have a watermark right across it. And that's what I gave to the clerk's office. So that is the document that was obtained from the Massachusetts School Building Authority attorneys.
Okay, I didn't see a watermark. May I don't know if I should ask other counselors if they were able to see a watermark. It's just unclear to me whether or not this is, so was the watermark a draft or was the watermark actual? What did it say?
The watermark is not a draft. It's actually lawyers put in when it's the final document so that the document cannot be changed. So it has an execution copy through every single page of the agreement.
Okay.
Even on the signature page, you'll see an execution copy. It's in light gray.
Okay, excellent. Well, really pleased to hear that we are moving forward and happy as a city that we are diligently pursuing every dollar from the state to state grant so that hopefully it will reduce the burden to Waltham, the tax burden to Waltham. And also pleased to hear that as of the signing of the MSBA document, the city will be free and clear of any pending litigation. So I look forward to the next phase with our constituents in terms of working with the mayor to address the neighbors, abutters, things with like insurance, traffic, debris, sound, quality of life issues, and start that robust Q&A that will be really important to, I know, the Ward 2 members. So I think that is it. May I ask you one more question? Is there, I don't see any indication of Jericho Hill in these documents anywhere. Will there be an update which will include the usage of Jericho Hill?
I spoke to the executive director of MSBA regarding the vote of both the city council and the school building committee with regard to Jericho Hill. He's aware of that.
Okay, so we don't need to put out a new schematic that shows it being in use for the field and the parking garage?
This is for the total funding. And as indicated, the Jericho Hill is basically less blasting. If you watch the presentation, I know you were on the video, the presentation showed that this is the amount of funding That is the amount of estimated blasting. So based upon that, we were within the project scope and budget.
Okay, so this project scope and budget only needs to speak to numbers and not necessarily to exact diagrams of what we plan to do?
Mayor, can I answer for you here?
Sure.
No, so the project scope and budget refers to what the project is. It's a high school for 1,830 kids at 554 Lexington Street that includes a 4-story building, a parking garage of 450 spaces, and an athletic field. The additional acreage does not impact what the project scope is. The budget is set. We cannot exceed that budget. So the fact that the field moves around on the site is not a set indication of where you have to place it. It's schematic design, so it's a little different than what you've done before, where you've always had a final design. There will be changes, and I've always said there will be changes as we develop the documents. So the MSBA is aware of the additional 6 acres, and since it doesn't impact the scope, which is the 1,830 student school, or the budget, it does not affect this agreement. So no changes need to be made to this agreement.
Great, thank you so much for that
Sure.
clarification. Appreciate it. No further questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Councilor Dunn. Questions from other city councilors?
Madam Vice
Councilor
President.
Stanley, I recognize Councilor Stanley.
Thank you. Not as much as a question as just a statement to say that, I believe it's critically important that we approve this matter tonight. That's a very sizable amount of state money that Waltham is receiving. And, as been said many times before, I applaud the mayor and our Lorraine Finnegan, the team, superintendent, all of those that have worked diligently to get us this far. But in light of the pandemic, we don't want to screw up this opportunity. Revenue has fallen through the floor for many states, including Massachusetts. Estimates now are $6 billion less revenue coming in than last year. And, if Waltham passes on this opportunity, it's more than certain or, unlikely that we'd have this opportunity again to get this amount of money. And that's just my opinion, but it's based on a lot of truths and factual information. So I urge everyone to vote approval on this matter tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Stanley. Any other comments or questions by members of the committee? Well, we have a motion on the floor by Councilor Paz. And would the clerk of the committee call the roll on the motion for approval for to allow the mayor to the authorization to sign?
Yes. President Brasco,
Yes.
Councilor Darcy,
Yes.
Councilor Dunn,
Yes.
Councilor Durkee,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor LaCava,
Yes.
Councilor LaFosse,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councilor Mackin,
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin,
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien,
Yes.
Councilor Paz,
Yes.
Councilor Stanley,
Yes.
Councilor Vidal,
Yes.
14 in favor, none opposed.
The clerk will call the vice president, please.
Vice President McMenim,
Yes.
15 in favor, none opposed. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members of the committee. The clerk, is there any other new matters in the committee?
No, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, this is Councilor Vidal. Make the motion to adjourn.
Councilor Vidal has made a motion to adjourn at 8:33 p.m. on Monday, May 18th. On the motion, the clerk will call the roll, please.
President Brasco,
Yes.
Councilor Darcy,
Yes.
Councilor Dunn,
Yes.
Councilor Durkee,
Yes.
Councilor Harris,
Yes.
Councilor LaCava,
Yes.
Councilor LaFosse,
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councilor Mackin,
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin,
Yes.
Councilor O'Brien,
Yes.
Councilor Paz,
Yes.
Councilor Stanley,
Yes.
Councilor Vidal.
Yes.
It's 14 in favor, none opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. By your action, you have adjourned the committee of the whole meeting at 8:34 on Monday evening, May 18th. Good evening, everybody. Stay safe, stay well.
Councilor O'Connor, you're here, right?
Indeed.
Okay, well, I'm ready whenever you are.
Give Mr.
Could I ask
Senafani.
just what, excuse me, could I ask 1 minute till I go get my documents, please? 1 minute. That's all. Hold on.
You take your time, Madam Vice President.
Loud chair.
Thank you very much. I'm back and I have the documents for the outside audit, so I'm ready to go on anybody else's. Hello?
Chairman LaCava is on mute, so I think as soon as, there we go.
Sorry, I had to grab something myself. I apologize, Madam Chair. Thank you for your speed. So the time is 8:36 and I call the Finance Committee to chair. We are currently live on the City of Waltham's YouTube channel and being recorded for later broadcasts. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor LaFosse,
Yes, present.
Councilor Mackin,
Present?
Councilor McMenim,
So
Councilor McMenim,
I'm present.
Councilor Vidal,
Present.
Chairman LaCava.
Present. Again, Mr. Clerk, I will give you the honors. I won't steal them from you this evening.
Okay, the first two items on the agenda are the approval of the minutes of the last two meetings. I just realized I did not email those out to the committee members, so I would request we table those to the next meeting.
Council Vice President
Okay.
McMenim makes a motion to table those matters
Collectively.
collectively until the next Finance Committee meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The first matter is a request to transfer $20,000 to cover the disposal of trench tailings for the remainder of fiscal year 2020.
Looks like the
Mr. Chair, make a motion to hear from off-committee members, all off-committee members at this time.
You've all heard the sense of the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And if council, I'm sorry, if CPW Director Jason is here and I see his name here,
See
click
his
on, maybe
beautiful
he could
face.
just explain to us what trench tailings are.
Trench tailings are when we do water and sewer digs or any other projects, anything we take out of the ground or need to dispose of goes into the trench tailings pile. It's then hauled off site and disposed of by a contractor.
I'm going to make a motion for approval.
On that motion,
So I just wanted to add one piece so we're not caught off guard later. We'll probably be back at the end of the year for another transfer or for more money. This will pay us through up to date what we've spent. So we're doing a lot of digs. There's still water breaks and sewer issues and projects we're doing that, is adding to the pile, and we keep, so we got to get rid of it. So we'll do our best to limit what we get out this year as much as we can and to hold, but most likely we'll be back again towards the end of the year.
thank you, Mr. Chason, for that synopsis. Again, there is a motion on the floor. You've all heard the sense of it. Roll call, I believe, will be requested by Madam Vice President. Is that correct?
Correct.
Roll call is requested.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes.
Counselor Vidal.
Yes.
By your actions, you have accepted this money. Thank you, Mr. Chason, for coming this evening.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is the acceptance of various donations from Oscar and Barbara LeBlanc for the City Hall Museum Room.
Mr. Chair,
Madam Vice President,
thank you very much. I'm going to make a motion for approval of acceptance, and perhaps the auditor could read for us both Barbara and Oscar LeBlanc, who happen to be Randy LeBlanc's mom and dad, have lived in this city for a long, long time. And so perhaps the auditor or the clerk could explain to us what gifts they are giving to the city's museum.
Certainly. One large Cedar Hill milk bottle, one small Cedar Hill milk bottle, one pocket Mason's watch, 3 Waltham watches, wristwatches, 1 Waltham pin, 1 Waltham Watch Company stock certificate, 1 2019 Waltham Parade trophy, and 1 Moody Street Fire Station postcard.
Councilor LeBlanc, Councilor, Vice President McMenim, I believe you still have the floor, but I do see Councilor LeBlanc has unmuted himself. I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
if he would
Yes,
like to speak.
I would, first of all, such a variety of historical artifacts, and they're all just about the right size to be able to go into that museum downstairs as it's being funded, I guess, if you will, by so many members of the community, and such a wonderful set of donations. And so we've already made a motion to hear from off-committee members that would include Councilor LeBlanc. And so I'd love to hear what he has to say to us about those presents, those donations from his mom and dad. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilor LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the Dean of the Council for recognizing me. The Cedar Hill milk bottles, they were in the old Cedar Hill, which was, I'm sure, part of all the Bean Dairy and the Cornelia Warren Estate. That's where those milk bottles were found. And they came into the family. And so I was talking to my parents about the museum in the basement, and then they claimed that they had some artifacts from the watch factory, including an actual stock certificate. And both my grandparents on my father's side had worked at the watch factory. So yeah, they wanted to donate those. And so I thank you for receiving the gifts.
Thank you, Councilor LeBlanc. I believe we have a motion for acceptance on the table. On that motion, roll call is requested.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Vice President McMenim, you are muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, I don't know which icon I'm supposed to be hitting here, the microphone or the Zoom camera. Yes.
Counselor Vidal.
Yes.
That gift is accepted, and I believe as is customary, Mr. Senafani, if we can get a thank you note out to the LeBlancs for that.
Yes.
Councilor Blank, thank you very much. And before we go on that note, I will like to say that I was approached by someone this weekend, thanking us for sending them a thank you note, sending their son a thank you note for something they had donated to the city in relation to COVID-19. So it was pretty cool to see that and talk to someone, and those thank you notes are received. So I just wanted to let you all know that that was a conversation I had this weekend.
Wonderful. Mr. Chair, could I just insert something here, please?
Absolutely, Madam.
Thank you. Earlier in the evening, Councilor LeBlanc, in his opening prayer and acknowledgement of our veterans, also mentioned the food bank that we had, that the mayor chaired and spearheaded last Friday evening, creating 465 bags of food, and the elected officials helped her along with the Lions Club. And then Saturday, we distributed that. The one group that we never, I think, acknowledged publicly, and that was and is Market Basket, for their generosity. What they gave and sent to us for us to be able to distribute to people in Waltham was nothing less than spectacular. And Councilor Fossey went with his truck and picked up tons and tons of food. We provided people with a meal, I hope for a week, including chicken for as many people as we could. But I think we have to acknowledge Market Basket and the generosity of the people who gave that food. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. And Mr. Clerk.
Last matter is Council Rule 66, the annual independent audit review. And Mr. Chris Rogers of Clifton Larson Allen, our independent auditor, is on the call this evening.
Madam Dean Vice President makes a motion to hear from all off-committee members on this matter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Rogers, thank you for joining us tonight. I believe, as is customary in the years past, we'll give you some time right now to give a quick synopsis rundown before you field questions from our committee members.
Great. Well, thank you for having me, and I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe during these challenging times. Unfortunately, the Zoom and the GoToMeetings and the Microsoft Teams, that's our way of life now. So thank you for the opportunity. So what I'd like to do tonight is just go through, and first, before we get into everything, is just go over what our terms of engagement are. Then I'll provide an executive summary, go over the financial highlights, very high level. And then we'll go over the Yellow Book audit, Yellow Book report, as well as the uniform guidance report. And then we'll wrap it up with the management letter. So with that, the terms of our engagement, we issue 4 different opinions and we provide 3 separate reports. So we express opinions on whether or not your basic financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also express opinions on whether or not your pension plan schedules are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also express an opinion on compliance as it relates to your major federal award programs. And we also express an opinion, or in relation to opinion, on your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. 3 other reports that we provide, we do not provide an opinion, but we do provide a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. We also provide a report on internal control over compliance directly related to your federal award programs. And then the final report that we issue relates to the management letter, which is just if we identify control deficiencies, we include them in a letter to management. So, a summary standpoint, we did express an unmodified opinion on your financial statements that is consistent with prior years. That is also the best opinion available. We had no findings reported in your we call it a yellow book report, but it's the report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and grants. And that for me is and it's what I tell all of my clients, is that from an internal control standpoint is the most important report, because if we identified material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in your internal control structure, that's the report where we would report it. Excuse me. So again, that was a clean report, no findings cited there. We also had an unmodified opinion, best opinion available on your pension plan schedules. And we also had an unmodified opinion on your major federal award programs. Again, the unmodified opinion is the best opinion available. And then although we did have an unmodified opinion on your federal award programs, we did have 2 compliance findings. Again, they did not raise to a material level, but they're required to be reported under federal guidelines. And finally, we had 6 management letter comments this year. 2 are informational, and there's 1 new one and 3 repeat findings that we'll discuss later. So from a financial standpoint, just to give a very broad brushed overview of, that 150-page document that you're trying to get through, there's 3 different bases of accounting that are in there. One of them is a full accrual. It's a government-wide financial statement that segregates between your governmental activities and your business type activities. So it really gives you it's like a business financial statement. Has all your long-term assets, your long-term liabilities. You then have your fund financial statements, which is more consistent with any type of reports you may be getting out of City Hall. It's more closer to the cash basis of accounting. And then you have the general fund budget to actual results. So with that premise, looking at your government-wide financial statements, you had a net deficit at the end of the year of a little over $460 million. Now, that's not a small number, but there is a reason for the number. You've recorded a net pension liability of about $200 million and a net OPEB liability of about $608 million. So if we were, now those 2 liabilities have been brought onto the books over the past 6 years now. Prior to that, your unrestricted net position was in a positive, but the accounting standards has required us to bring these liabilities on, and now your unrestricted deficit is a $715 million. But again, that's directly related to these full accrual liabilities. It's consistent. When you look at other governments, they're all in the same type of position, meaning they're in a negative restricted position. Looking at the general fund on page 29 of your statements, your total fund balance at the end of the year was about $55 million. That is broken down into 4 different components. The first being restricted, about $13.6 million, which is directly related to amounts set aside for OPEB. There's another $5.3 million that's been committed for continuing appropriations. Another $4 million that's been assigned for encumbrances. And your unassigned fund balance at the end of the year was about $32 million. So one of the percentages that we like to look at in a government financial statement is what's the percentage of your unassigned fund balance in the general fund compared to your expenditures and transfers out in the general fund. That percentage at the end of this year was about 12.5%. Over the past 5 years, that percentage has been as low as 10.8% and as high as 13.2%. So very consistent within parameters of what the Government Finance Officers Association believes is a healthy and appropriate fund balance of about 15%. Looking at your enterprise funds, your water and sewer enterprise funds, the unrestricted net position is about 12.5 million and 13 million respectively. The only enterprise fund that's in a deficit, and I will say this, your enterprise funds are presented on the full accrual basis of accounting, It includes all of the long-term liabilities and the long-term assets. The memorial rink had a net deficit of a little over $600,000. Now, again, if we were to look at the net pension liability and the net OPEB liability, those total about $770,000. So if we were to remove those full accrual items that are not funded, you would be back into a surplus net position. Excuse me. Looking at a couple of notes, note 9 on page 61 identifies your long-term obligations excluding pension and OPEB. At the end of the year, your governmental activities had about $86 million of long-term obligations, with the bulk of that, or $76 million, related to debt. Your business type activities, which is your water, your sewer, your veterans rink, you had total debt of a little over $26 million. On note 11 is where we get into the OPEB footnote. Very long footnote, a lot of information in there. But I'll pull out what I think are the most important pieces of this, which is number one, the liability. And the liability at the end of 2018 was about $619 million. One of the things that the standards require.
Excuse me, just 1 minute, please. Excuse me. Through you,
Yes.
Chair, could you ask the auditor if he could tell us what page he's on with the unfunded liability that he's talking about right now, please?
Page 67.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Not at all.
And it probably goes, Madam Vice President, it's probably 67 to probably 72. So
Thank you
it's a
very
very long
much. I
footnote.
have it now. Yep,
Okay.
I have it now. Thank you.
So, like I said, the total liability was about $619 million at the end of the year. One of the things that the standard required, because this liability is based on an actuarial valuation, and actuarial valuations have a lot of inputs. There's a lot of different variables, such as healthcare cost trend rates, discount rates, mortality rates, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things the standard required was that we have to show the volatility by moving the discount rate 1% and the healthcare cost trend rate 1% to show what the liability would look like under a different scenario. So just as an example, so the discount rate that's being used is 3.75%. If that were to increase by 1 percentage point, it would increase, excuse me, would decrease the liability to $510 million. If you were to decrease that rate, it would increase the liability to a little over $700 million. So as you can see, that's a 1 percentage point means a lot. I mean, that almost moved the needle at 90 million one way, 100 million another way. Same goes with the healthcare cost trend rate. If we were to increase that by 1%, it would increase the liability to 715 million. If we decrease it, it goes to a little over 500 million. So again, one thing to always remember when looking at net pension liabilities and net OPEB liabilities is that it's based on many assumptions that can change. Based on experience and the other variables that I had laid out before. The next note is, you probably guessed it, pension. Again, this is on page 71. The note begins, and it's 4 or 5 pages. But your net pension liability at the end of the year was about $205 million. One of the things that we do is we look at the net position of the retirement system and compare that to what the total liability is. Right now, at 12/31/2018, the fiduciary net position was a little over 50% of the total liability. So same as with OPEB, there's a table in there that shows a sensitivity analysis, that if we move the discount rate 1 percentage point higher or lower, what would that look like? Your discount rate that was used for the actuarial was 7.75%. If we moved it 1 percentage point higher, it would reduce the liability to about 165 million. If we were to reduce that discount rate, it would increase the liability to a little over $250 million. So again, a lot of variables that go into those actuarial evaluations. So before I move on to the uniform guidance report, I don't know if you guys want to ask questions now as it relates to the financials or do it at the end. I'm fine with whatever approach you would like.
Does anyone currently have any questions for the external auditor?
I do.
Vice President McMenim.
I earlier this week, I sent a note. I sent several listservs, auditor, and I sent a note to our own auditor about the future pension funding for Mass teachers' retirement, and they're talking about 5 to 7 years from now, the possibility of that being underfunded, the Mass teachers' retirement system. As you know, because you do this for a living, can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So as you know, the Boston teachers are the only teacher group that I think in the state belongs to the contributory retirement system and not the Mass teachers.
I believe you're right.
Which that includes me as a former Boston teacher. However, the Mass teachers, my question to you here on the note 15 of the pension plan, with the active, inactive, disabled, and the retirees and beneficiaries currently receiving benefits, the total of all of that comes down to 1,870 people. Am I to assume that they are all receiving that from Mass teachers?
No, that would, so if you're on note 15, bear with me, I'm getting to
Yes,
that.
I am.
Okay, so that membership is through the Waltham retirement system.
Waltham retirement, not the Mass teachers.
Correct.
Can you explain to me how the Mass teachers retirement system and the Waltham contributory retirement system intersect?
Well, they're two separate standalone systems. So the Mass teachers, right, that's what the teachers are part of that system. They don't really, they really never intersect when it's all said and done, because the Waltham retirement system has to fund itself, and the MTRS, or Mass teachers retirement system, has to fund itself. And as you know, that's coming from the Commonwealth.
So yes, well, it is, and it's going into a completely separate funding mechanism. But when the teachers in our school system, each paycheck they receive, and they contribute towards a retirement plan, what plan are they contributing toward?
MTRS.
The Mass teachers?
Mass teachers, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, so my question here then, you know what? I misread this. I'm sorry. Substantially all employees of the city are members of this system except for public school teachers. Oh, I was assuming the 1870 were teachers. Those are our own retirees.
That's right.
Okay, now I have that all straightened out. Thank you. That helps me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else currently have any questions? No? Please, Mr. Rogers, continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as I said before, well, the uniform guidance report. So there was about the city had about $7.2 million of federal expenditures last year. We tested two major programs. One of them was your community development block grant, and the other was your child nutrition cluster. As I said before, you had an unmodified opinion on both of those programs, but we did have two compliance and internal control findings. They both related to the CDBG program. One of them related to reporting. On the annual report, there were amounts identified that we could not trace to support. And on it, there were several environmental exclusion letters, And on 2 of them, 2 out of the 8 that we tested, the incorrect Code of Federal Regulations was cited. So it wasn't significant enough to have material noncompliance with the program. They are findings. And when those get submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, the cognizant agency, which is HUD, would follow up with your CDBG department if they had any further questions on the findings. So that's the uniform guidance report. And if there are no questions there, I'll move to the management letter.
Looks like we're good. I do not see anyone looking to ask any questions, so please continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the management letter, we had 6 comments and recommendations. We had 1 new comment related to student activity funds. We had 3 repeat comments, 1 related to information technology, 1 related to procurement, and 1 related to the financial policies and procedures manual. There are 2 other comments in there related to fiduciary activities and lease accounting and financial reporting. Those 2 comments are about accounting standards that were set to be implemented in 2020 and 21, yet with COVID-19, both of those have been postponed or delayed 2 years, or a year in one case, 2 in another. So GASB 84 has been postponed until 2021, and GASB 87 regarding leases has been postponed until 2022. What that means is that your city auditor gets a break and doesn't have to implement those over the next couple of years. So looking at the new comment for this year, it relates to the student activity funds. So as part of our audit, we went through, we were looking at so the way the student activity funds work is that the treasurer maintains the agency funds. There's checking accounts that are maintained by the principals. All activity has to go through and be deposited with the treasurer. So when we went to verify the reconciliation between the school and the treasurer's office, those reconciliations weren't occurring. We had also identified that there were 6 funds that were in a deficit position at the end of the year. And based on management's response, and again, anytime you see management's response, we do not audit the responses. We put the responses in and issue our report. Our process is next year, actually we'll be starting the audit very soon for FY20. We will go back out to the field and we will follow up with the findings that we had. Getting to the other 3 comments that are in here that are the repeat comments. One of them relates to information technology, which, in summary, from a information security standpoint, the policies plans have not been formally established as it relates to disaster recovery or business continuity, another way to say it, vendor management and change management. The password policy needed to be strengthened to get closer to, I call it the newer standards, and network access. From an environment standpoint, there's not videos recording the server rooms, and there's no formal review of all the users' access rights to the applications and the software. The next comment relates to procurement. So these are a few of what was reported in the prior year. The first part of the finding, there's several of them here. First part relates to having a formal policies and procedures manual that adheres to federal requirements or the uniform guidance. So that a formal document does not exist. We also had a comment related to the city's emergency purchase order process that is required for every purchase under $1,000. Just from an efficiency standpoint, we think it's a burdensome process, and not understanding the benefit that the city is getting out of it. So again, this isn't necessarily a control deficiency. This is, we think you can gain some efficiencies by taking another look at the process. Third piece relates to a sample that we took of 22 purchase orders. We identified that there was 3 instances where the goods or services were already incurred prior to the time the purchase order was initiated. And the last piece of the procurement comment relates to the invoice approval process. And without getting into all the details, we again think there's a benefit to relooking at the process. We believe that you could gain some efficiencies by restructuring how invoices are paid. And then the final comment in the management letter is the financial policies and procedures manual. So the city has fiscal policies in place, but from a documented financial policies and procedures manual, that right now is not in place, or at least it wasn't during our audit. I know the city auditor's office was in the process of formalizing a document when it came to the policies and procedures of that office. So those are the 6 comments that appear in the 2019 management letter, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that any of you have.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I believe we will have quite a few questions coming up, and I do believe I see Councilor Mackin's hand being so vigilantly raised. Councilor Mackin.
Thank you. So I have questions on both the IT portion and the procurement portion that I think may overlap somewhat. So starting with the IT part, is there a standardized set or a checklist or something that you use either internally or that's publicly available when you do the audit of the IT department?
No. Well, we have our own proprietary process that we follow.
Okay. So then some of the standards that you lay out in here, the password standard, the recommendation to use video recordings, are those coming from state or federal laws, or are those coming from industry best practices?
Industry best practices.
Okay. And is there a place that somebody could go to see what the industry best practices now are, or is that a sort of domain specific knowledge that an expert acquires over time?
Well, I will tell you right now, I am not an IT specialist. so my guess is I'm sure we could go out on the web and find it, but I mean, it's a question I can ask my IT specialists on, you know, is there the best place to go to say, hey, here's you know, this group's got it all together. These are the standard practices that should be around.
Okay, I was wondering because the Massachusetts State Comptroller's Office has a bunch of checklists and things relevant to IT infrastructure and does provide resources to municipalities. So I wasn't sure if that's the reference we should be going back to, or if there were others. And I guess that's a question for an IT specialist.
Yeah, but you know, what Massachusetts has out there, I'm sure was developed by an IT specialist, right? So I'm sure I think it's a good place to start. But I can ask my IT professionals, and I can get an answer to Mr. Santafonte that he can relay to the council.
Sure, thank you. Okay.
Welcome.
And then similarly for the procurement and invoice approval process, are there industry standards on that, or is that again something that's proprietary to your firm?
Well, I wouldn't say it's proprietary because different municipalities have different processes, you know. So when we're looking at it, we're just saying I think there's too many steps here in the process. I don't know that the cost benefit of the current environment's there. And I think to relook at it and reevaluate it would be a benefit.
Okay. And then I know that you said you don't comment on the management's response letters. I'm going to focus on what the audit says. And that's the purchase orders where you sampled 22 and found 3 instances where the goods or services were incurred prior to the initiation of the purchase order process.
Yeah.
I noticed that the management didn't seem to respond to that. And I guess the question is, what steps do you think the city needs to take in cases where you find things like that happening?
Well, you need to understand, you need to dig in. I would dig into those 3 situations and understand why the current system allowed that to happen.
Okay. Could you provide to the clerk of the committee what those 3 instances were?
Yes,
Great.
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is all of my questions for you. So thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight.
No, thank you.
Councilor Mackin, thank you very much for those questions. Are there any other questions from on-committee members currently?
I have a couple.
Madam Vice President.
Oh, wait a minute. Thank you. There we go. So this is the second year that the second year that 2 departments have been reevaluated for a second time, that being IT and procurement. But before I get to that, let me go back, please, to the activity. 1 second here, please.
Student activities?
Yeah, student activity funding. Okay. So I took a look at this, and what I have a question down below, management's response in July 2019, that's last July, New Waltham High School fundraising coordinator, student activity treasurer was hired. First of all, that was after the budget was approved that I know of, unless it was in the budget through you to the auditor. Was that in last year's budget, that position?
That's a school department position.
Yes. So you don't know?
I do not know if it was in the original
I don't
budget or
either.
was it
And my question would be, what was this person hired at what compensation? Do we know?
that's a question for the school department.
Okay. So we actually, this discipline, if you will, so having been a school teacher in Boston for 35 years, having been a product of through, college and masters and beyond in education, the fact that there are independent student activities funds maintained, this is just by the high school. This is not even in the elementary or middle school level. Am I correct, Auditor?
That's all that we looked at was the high school, but there are student activity funds maintained at typically most of the schools. When you get down to the elementaries, the level of activity is obviously a lot smaller. It has to do with field trips. But when you get to the middle schools and high schools, there's a lot of activity.
And so are we distinguishing here between the PTO organizations that raise money, bake sales, field trips, et cetera, and the school-based organizations that are sanctioned by the school committee?
Correct.
So they're so in effect, they're 2 separate entities.
That's right.
So we really don't even know how many of these the student activities funds there are, or how many funds there are out there that are contributing towards various activities at the high school, do we?
Well, the high school will have an accounting of all of it. You have to track each of the individual student activities. So class of 2020, class of 21, class of 22, baking, there's many student activity funds.
So do we have a right to be able to ask for a list of all of those activities and a balance in each of those activity funds?
Yes. It's a reconciliation that should be occurring on a monthly basis. And Paul, if I'm, excuse me,
Well, if you know about the fund, if you don't know about the fund, it's not going to happen.
correct. And the one that we looked at has been known about. So it's a
Okay.
school committee authorized account.
Okay, so now we get down to this position of a Waltham High School fundraising coordinator, student activity treasurer. So this was management's response, so it's not our management, it's the school department's management that responded to this way. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So they have so many funds that they are justifying the creation of the word here is new, Waltham High School fundraising coordinator. I thought we had a business manager, and I thought we had other agents responsible in the school department for accounting for money that is both brought into and spent by the school system. Any response to that?
I know you have a school business manager, sure.
But this is a new position, so I'm going to have to ask them about this. Okay, so now, and you said in the federal audit, were there anything school related in the federal audit that you picked up?
No.
The
Nope.
school lunch program? No. That's
School lunch program was clean opinion, no findings.
and Title I clean too?
We did not audit Title I. So we audited 2 grants this year. One of them was the child nutrition cluster, which is school lunch breakfast, and the community development block grant.
So the child nutrition cluster, is that affiliated with the school lunch program in any way? Or is it a separate?
Yes. Oh, no, it is. It is the school lunch program.
So in years past, you've cited the school lunch program.
Off the top of my head, I
Oh,
don't.
no, you haven't. It wasn't your auditing firm. It was other auditing firms, because I brought people in about this.
Okay.
The coordinator for school lunches. Although I had many complaints years ago. I have never had no complaints about what's going on now, especially during this COVID. I understand the people in that department are just doing magnificent work. So let me see. That was on. Okay, so let me go back now, if I might, to the information technology. I see a step up on the part of the IT director, a step up in an assertive way, of a step up of cooperation. And I see a step up of willingness to work with the mayor, confer with the mayor. And I see that willingness happening. However, the more I read and see in all my little listservs that I belong to, the more I read and see, this information technology discipline subject is going to be huge going forward, huge. Just like
Agreed.
this pandemic took the world by surprise, the unforeseen of the future, for example, a complete depletion of the grid, the electric grid, would cripple countries for I don't know how long, were that to happen. It was infiltrated and it were to happen. It's the same thing with this information technology. If there is infiltration across the country of the IT departments, federal, state, and local level, it will cripple the existing governmental agencies that seem to really move along like a good railroad track, like the accelerator on a railroad track, moving right along. We've all been doing that pretty well until this pandemic hit. And I think it's given pause to look at some of these other disciplines that we're not quite in touch with. So on the IT side here, and I know Councilor Mackin's involved in a lot of this, I'm not seeing a lot of heavy duty stuff, network access, better passwords and better password policy and network information security. I get that. And I get management's response. I get the information security, password policy, and network access. Do you have, you don't give recommendations, you only do analysis, correct?
So we give recommendations. Sure.
So have you taken an analytical look at our IT department since this is the second year that we have, you've cited? Have you taken an analytical look, and could you give any kinds of ideas that might be moving forward, best practices?
Well, so first, we refer to it as information technology financial audit support. So as part of our standards require us to obtain an understanding of the accounting information system and its applications. So what we're doing is what we refer to as an IT general controls review. It's very high level. We're not digging in. But the one thing that I will comment on is that, I have a lot of clients who ask me, what's the biggest risk? It's your IT infrastructure. Especially
the infrastructure, yeah.
100%. I'm assuming most, maybe not all of you, but I'm assuming you know what ransomware is.
Sure.
Ransomware is real. It took out, I can't remember the last count, but we're getting near over 100 governments, and they range from the city of Baltimore and the city of Atlanta to tiny little school districts in Texas. So, and that is the result of not having a secure infrastructure, IT infrastructure environment. So I think you're spot on. Like it is critical and it's vital. But if you want to get into network engineering and that type of stuff, that is a different type of engagement.
Okay, I get that. And the mayor, upon recommendation from several people, has put together a task force of both the IT director for the schools and the city side. And I know Council Mackin's going to be in on that, that threesome to analyze, to try and come up with a truthful analysis of what we have, a truthful analysis, not a patchwork of, well, we have this and we think we have that and maybe we should get that. None of that. A real truthful analysis of what we have and what we need going forward. So I'm a little bit happier with what happened this year with IT than I was last year. And let me move on to procurement here.
Madam Vice President, before you move
Yes.
forward with that, I would like to mention that prior to this pandemic, I had met with the mayor in response to an issue from procurement that was brought before us as the council last year. We eventually had filed it. There were some issues with it that was above the finance committee, and through the mayor, she wanted me to let this committee know that has gone through the mayor's office and is being resolved on her end, and she just wanted to make sure that comment was made. So before you went forward, I wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me just go down then to the analysis, Mr. Rogers, that you have done here. I'm on the wrong page. Okay. So one thing I'm looking at here now, because procurement is something that we don't deal with per se, the city council, it's like after the fact we do, but we're not involved with a lot of it like we are, say, with CPW or with the fire or with the police.
Right.
Procurement's there, but we don't know where, so to speak. And I'm looking here at management's response. Now, the auditor has made a couple of recommendations. The first one is response regarding management develop and implement a documented procurement manual that conforms to 2 CFR 200 general procurement standards. And do you agree with that? That a document would be something that everybody, including city councils, could look at and understand really what should be happening?
Sure. a procurement document, and this is how we procure under federal law and state law, yes.
Okay,
That'd be like sorry, but that would be like the financial policies and procedures manual comment. It's the same thing.
yes, okay. That's good. Okay, and I've read that spot. If I go to the next one, goods and services response, auditor recommends management review controls over the approval of invoices prior to the initiation of the purchase order process. As far as I'm concerned, it should never have been gone anywhere else or been done any other way. I don't understand how all of that took place, but I agree that you don't get something, you don't go out and buy something. I can't do that. I can't go to the grocery store and buy something and then come back and say, oh, well, I need some money to buy from whoever has the coffers in my house and say, oh, I need some money now because this is what I bought. Well, who gave you permission to buy that?
Right. Yep.
So I agree with that totally. And then the auditor recommends response. The EPO is certainly not all assuring of tight controls. So the emergency purchase order, if that's what an EPO is, how often, in your experience, auditor, how often, I'm talking to Mr. Rogers, the external auditor, how often would a community or a municipality, how often or how many EPOs a year, generally speaking, would you see that happening?
I wouldn't even know where to begin, but I can, the EPO is unique to Waltham. So
meaning
that not, I shouldn't say it that way. The emergency purchase order would be if there was a water main broke last night and we got to go get it done. But the way that the emergency purchase order is being utilized in Waltham is more of it's a filler because every invoice has to have a purchase order tied to it. And that's not state law. That isn't a law. And that's why we're looking at it and say, why are you doing all of this? You're creating a lot of additional work just from an administrative process. And there's no control if somebody's already bought something and now they got to go get an EPO to process to actually pay a bill. The transaction's already over.
So what you don't know is that before you became the external auditor and 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 before that, and before this mayor became mayor, there were procedures in place that were not always as accurately accounted for as there are now. And I'm being very polite here. Tremendous misuse of public property, hundreds of cell phones with no accountability, hundreds of vehicles in the city with no accountability, leaving the state, being seen in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island. So a lot of those practices, the current mayor immediately evaluated and reined them all in. And I think in some cases, the procurement procedures needed the same. So can I ask you, rather than take up any more time, is this going to be a work in progress, the procurement recommendations? So the next time we're going to get a shot at talking about this, I mean, we could talk about it if we wanted to, but I think it needs some time to work itself out. Next time we're going to be talking about this, you'll be back into our city again when? Somewhere around October, November?
We will begin the audit within the next 30 to 45 days. And then our primary field work is typically scheduled October and November.
Okay. And so can I ask you, would you be looking at this as a follow-up again to see how things are going? Perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
You know something, I have to tell you, I've worked with 4 mayors, many outside audit agencies. I know what we are. I know what we have. I know the integrity of the city and the integrity of the people who work and who are picked to work with our city. And I'm very pleased with your performance. And I want you to know that.
Well, thank you very much, madam.
Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. Any on-committee members who currently have questions for the external auditor? There currently being none, I recognize off-committee member, Councilor McLaughlin. Before that, Councilor Fossey makes a motion to hear from all off-committee members. All those in favor, aye. They have it. Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for being here tonight. To go back to something Vice President McMenim just talked about, the EPOs. So you said that they were it was burdensome and there was no benefit to it. You also noted that there's no control deficiency with regard to it. But were you talking about the amount, the dollar amount of these things, or the process itself?
The process itself.
Okay.
There's many times where an invoice has already been received, yet to get it, and it's under $1,000, right? So there's no, it's good business, sound business practice. But you have to go get an approved EPO to actually get the bill paid. That's where I'm saying it's from an efficiency standpoint, it's inefficient.
And just in that group of comments, at the same time, you had said you had done a review of purchase orders and that you had found that 3 had been, we had received goods or services prior to the PO being cut. Were those EPOs you were talking about?
I don't know off the top of my head, because our sample that we would have done would have been the entire population.
And
Go
what
ahead,
was the
I'm
total
sorry.
amount of the sample?
22.
Okay. And so through you, Mr. Chair, to the auditor, Mr. Auditor, how many purchase orders does the city write over the course of the year? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Formal purchase orders on the city side, less than 1,000, probably around 850 to 900.
Okay, so just back to the auditors. So they weren't. I agree with the Vice President that we shouldn't be receiving things without purchase orders executed. But the fact that there were only 3 in the audit, that tells me that there's not a rampant problem with that. Just back to the EPO. So, as far as your recommendation goes, I would agree with you that there's got to be an easier way to do that. These days, $1,000, it doesn't get you an awful lot, and there's an easier way to do that. So, outside of this meeting, I'm going to speak to the auditor just about ways that can be addressed. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm all set.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councilor McLaughlin. Any other councilors on or off committee who currently have any questions for the external auditor? There being none at this time, I'd like to thank Mr. Rogers for coming in tonight. It's been a pleasure having you. Now I think it's my 3rd year seeing you, so
Yeah.
I do appreciate the time you spend with the city. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon.
All right, thank you very much. Everybody stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, you as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Senafani, Mr. Clerk, I believe this matter is something that we do not have, there is no approval process. This is just something we, at this point, actually, before I say that, would anyone like to make any request stemming from this audit before we move forward? There being none, Mr. Senafani, I do believe now we wish to, this is something we look to file now?
Yes.
Okay, would anyone like to make that motion?
Councilor LaCava, this is Councilor Vidal will make the motion to file this.
Councilor Vidal makes a motion to file the audit, the independent audit review, Rule 66. Roll call has been requested.
Councilor LaFosse,
Yes.
Councilor Mackin,
Yes.
Councilor McMenim,
Yes.
Councilor Vidal.
Yes.
And that has been filed. Mr. Stefani, I would like to thank you on that matter. I know that's something you work with the outside auditor, so thank you for your work done on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And before we adjourn, I think we have to speak to the mayor's budget, which she sent to us today, and working some dates and some times as we move forward. Mr. Senafani, if you could, I know we have Councilor Fossey and some new members who are still on the line here. Could you give a quick rundown on time of when the budget needs to be approved and kind of work backwards, if you could?
Sure. Well, ideally, we would want the budget approved before June 30th. I believe the last council meeting of the year is probably that last week in June.
I believe it's actually the 22nd as I'm looking. I'm just flipping pages back in my notes. Did we have a 5th Monday, I believe, in June? I'm just double checking. Yeah, so I believe it is the 22nd is our last.
Committee or council meeting?
It is a council meeting.
Okay. So typically we work back from that date. I know in the past, committee members have preferred not to wait till the last meeting of the fiscal year to approve the budget. There's always been some ability to approve the budget before you get to the last meeting.
Okay.
But I think in years past, the budget hearings with departments have occurred somewhere in the last week of May, first week of June.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. So what we will do now is I believe if we're looking to get things on the books as soon as possible, we're looking to schedule dates where we can run both. Let me backtrack here. We are looking to see if we would like to do in-person and Zoom committee meetings. I believe we could do a lot of our committees and excuse me, let me just check her here. Departments and committees through Zoom, but there are some I believe that we should bring in to have in-person meetings. Would anyone like to speak to that?
Councilor LaCava, this is Councilor Vidal speaking.
Councilor Vidal.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my question is how are we gonna know which departments will go live and which in person while others will go through Zoom? I guess we pick by the size of their department, I guess, right? I mean, there's some departments that definitely want to see them face to face and talk to them directly, but I guess who will make that decision? Which department will go in front of us?
Well, great question. As I'm trying to work the times out now, we as a finance committee do not meet again until June 1st. And if we were to possibly set dates for after June 1st for times to meet, we could come to this meeting on the 1st with recommendations of who councilors would like to see both in committee and Zoom. It would be a fast turnaround for Mr. Senafani to get people booked for both Zoom and online. Mr. Clerk Senafani, if we would come to you on the 1st with a list of departments we would like to see in person and ones we could send to Zoom, could we then turn those around if we had dates and times for you to schedule
Absolutely.
that?
Yes. And one thing, Mr. Chairman, you may recall, in the past, the committee has picked 3 or 4 standard questions that they expect all departments to answer. If that's the wish of the committee, we can get those questions out to the departments in advance so that when they come before you, either live or in person rather, or on Zoom, they're prepared to address those questions.
Mr. Chair, yes, that was absolutely something I had down here. So my suggestion would be to come on the 1st with questions we would like to see go forward, along with departments we would like to see in person and departments we could schedule through Zoom.
Could I ask you a question here, please, Mr. Chair?
Of course, Madam Vice President.
Is Councilor Vidal finished? He still has the floor?
I am finished, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me make a couple of suggestions here. First of all, if the auditor So we have 29 departments, and if the auditor could put together the list of those departments with 2 columns, Zoom or in person, and get that out to us electronically, the 5 members of the committee, and ask us to check off whether we would want them to come in person or by Zoom, and we can calculate from there what departments really are the most important that all of us want to see in person. Is that amenable? Is that amenable to you, Mr. Auditor?
We can do that tomorrow.
I'm going to make that, and so I'm going to make that motion now instead of waiting till the 1st. I'm going to make a request that the auditor put together a list of all of the departments with 2 columns in person or Zoom, and get that out to the 5 members of the committee to be sent back as soon as possible for them to calculate which of the committees we're going to ask to come in person. I made a request.
Thank you for that request, Madam Vice President. You've all heard the sense. Would you like a roll call on that?
Yes.
Roll call is requested.
On the request,
On the request, Councilor Mackin.
so I'm not entirely comfortable going forward planning on having any in-person meetings without some kind of plan of falling back to digital. With the governor's press conference today and the plan for reopening, it is phased, and if there is a spike, or if, God forbid, one of us comes down with symptoms, and we don't have a plan to fall back to digital, I'm concerned that one of this committee members might end up not being able to attend, which, given that there's only 5 of us, is a pretty significant detriment. And additionally, we run the risk of putting our department heads in danger, which I'm also not comfortable with. So I'd just like some assurance that there's a plan in place for that circumstance before I vote in favor of a request to confirm certain department heads in person.
Thank you for that.
I have no problem with what the councilor just said. As a matter of fact, I was going to continue on and give some sort of further ideas as we went through, but I'm happy to say that if in fact we did, all I'm asking is that we calculate who the 5 of us think we want to see. I mean, fire, police, schools, public works, 4 big ones right there. And, you know, anybody after that. We don't need to see the historical commission. We don't need to see the ZBA, or unless you really want to, and you'll make that decision when you check off whichever column you wish, and the auditor's office will calculate that for us. Once that's calculated, I would presume that any one of us on June 1st could make a decision, because we're coming together then, make a decision by then that, you know something, we better do all of this by Zoom. And I would have no problem with that, none.
Thank you, Council Vice President McMenim. And yes, to follow that, I believe if these are all scheduled in our in-person meetings or for a certain date and time at the last minute, at a certain time prior to that, if we had to move that date and time to Zoom, we wouldn't have to change much other than the location of where we are. So I do believe, as to follow up what both of you said, I think that is very amenable.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
this is
comfortable
Jeanette.
with that.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, I did. Councilor Mackin, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have something to add, but I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
No, I'm finished. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I had a suggestion today from some of the departments regarding boards and commissions, that all of the meetings be held at Government Center Auditorium as opposed to City Hall. Government Center Auditorium is a large enough space. It also has television access and parking, and naturally the protocols will be to sanitize everything. So what I'm suggesting is that it may be a better venue for, assuming everything goes right, that it's okay to meet and this would allow some safe social distancing and television access, and take care of both the department as well as the councilors.
I I think that's a great, fantastic recommendation, as I know this council, some off-committee members do like to come to this when they are able to in certain times. So at times you will have anywhere upwards of 8 or 9 counselors as in that meeting. So I believe if we could look forward to that, if we could look into that, that would be a fantastic recommendation.
And
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I would also have we have a sanitizing machine that I would naturally do before, after, so we can do that as well. And that is, hopefully take care of the air. In addition, everybody would have to have masks on and the safe, all the protocols that the governor has set forth.
Sounds
Okay,
great.
I'm just making it as a suggestion, that the venue, and I understand City Hall is where you usually have it, but the Hoover Room is close quarters, the council chamber is close quarters, the committee room, the city council conference room is close quarters too. So, okay, so I make that available for you. And I'll just make sure, if whatever date it is, I'll make sure that Mr. Forty and the maintenance department is aware, okay?
Thank you kindly, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Bye now.
So on this motion
So,
now,
on the request,
on the request, I have Councilor Fossey.
No, unfortunately, the mayor stole my thunder.
Looks like the internet stole the rest of it.
It is important to be able to meet face to face. We're dealing with the budget. We're dealing with money.
Councilor Fossey, I believe you're having a tough connection currently. Are you still speaking?
I was. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. If you'd like to probably repeat almost all of what you said. I don't think anyone heard it.
I was just saying that, I second what the mayor said. I do believe, I feel it's important to be able to meet face to face, have social distancing at Government Center on a matter of finance on behalf of the city.
Great. So back to Vice President McMenim's motion.
Councilor LaCava, this is Councilor Vidal. Can I have a moment to speak, or is it
Yes,
somebody
of
else?
course you can, sir.
All right,
You are
thank
up,
you.
sir.
All right, thank you. I do appreciate the offer from the mayor. However, I do want to make sure that we are aware there's 5 of us here. As the governor stated, we need a max of 10 people, and of course, observe social distancing. So if we're going to use Government Center, it's going to be very spread out. But I think if we reach over that 10 people limit, then I will have a concern.
Okay. That is well documented. Clerk Senafani, how many people from your department do you normally bring into these meetings? And are we able to leave some out of that room if possible?
Generally, it's myself and 3 of my professional accounting staff.
5 + 3 + 1 is 9. Plus, some people do. Some departments do bring more than one person to present. Are those 3 members of your staff able to work remotely? If there's
Yes.
a live feed, they are?
Yes.
Yes. So if we could keep the numbers under 10, Councilor Vidal, seems you would be okay with such a matter?
Yes, I think, I mean, anything over 10, it's the governor of the state is saying not to meet with more than 10 people. So I'm just following orders at the state level. So if we want to, I'm more than happy to meet with folks, and it's 5 of us here. If we need more folks, great. But I want to make sure that, the social distancing takes place and masks are worn and stay within the guidelines, I believe. I think 10, it's ideal, unless if that's not going to happen, then we probably will have a problem. I would, at least.
Well, your opinion is very valued here, so we appreciate that. And then that's something we will have to look at when we come back on the 1st. Maybe this is something that we might, as much as we would like to, I don't know if we will be able to achieve this during such a crazy time.
The other thing, Mr. Chairman,
Madam Mayor.
everyone has to look at the new The order is from the Board of Health. The governor's order is from, now he said at today's meeting, it's the Board of Health's order now. So I think you should also consult with the Waltham Board of Health, the Waltham Health Department as well. I think it's only important because the issue about you can gather outside, you can gather inside, so that there's so many questions about what has come out that we need to study it next couple of days to see all of it, because quite frankly, there's been some modifications that construction is allowed with no limitation. So, you know what I mean? There's been major shifts. So I agree with what Councilor Vidal is saying, because the safety of all is paramount. But I'm not sure that the governor's order is that clear this time, because it's not a stay-at-home order anymore with the limitation of gatherings. It's a State Board of Health order. So it was always both, but I haven't seen the order yet. And he said it's now a safer at home if possible. So I have to look on the gatherings, because that was a separate section of the governor, and the State Board of Health issued one similar, but his order was the original one, was a 10 gathering. Until I see the order that he actually signed, I don't know that. And I would like to have an opportunity to do that. Additionally, I think that what would happen here is similar to when you have too many people in the room. For example, that you declare the meeting, you have too many people in the room. Some people would have to step out. We would have to have another section for them, so that you make sure at all times that there are not, there's safe social distancing, and that you don't have those people in there, because the some of the orders. So, for example, you're allowed to open up a park. You're allowed to do this, but the issue now is every single business has a number that they've attached to it. So you can't have more than 5 people in a barbershop. So I just, what I mean, and that's all I'm saying. It's very complicated. So I've read some of it, but it was embargoed until after 11 o'clock. So we had a meeting, remote meeting with the Board of Health, State Board of Health today, both the Health Department and myself, and then the governor's order came out. So we just want to make sure those two are in line. And because the State Board of Health, the entire enforcement of the pandemic is through the Board of Health, from the State Board of Health to the local boards of health. And that is the enforcement. So we need to have them involved, because they're the ones that would basically say whether or not, and I understand they're local, but they would say whether or not we would be subject to fines, $300 under the non-criminal disposition. So I wouldn't want to get anybody in trouble.
Thank you.
Okay?
once again,
And
Madam Mayor.
I'm just saying these orders are more complicated than the first one. I just have to check, with the health board too. But I was just offering it as a location.
Of course.
I wasn't offering it to get anybody sick or hurt or anything else like that, because we have been very careful. The buildings will not be opened. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So there won't be public coming in and out of the buildings, so there's one safety there. The only people that will be coming into this building will be employees, and they'll have to be doing exactly what's going to be all the protocols. So, okay, I talked enough to
schedule a
thank you.
meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Fossey.
Yes, Mr. Chair. On a weekly basis, I wait in line to go to the grocery store or the coffee shop no more than 6 feet in front of or behind a person. I am a flooring guy, and I feel that the square footage of Government Center is adequate for 10 people using social distancing. At this time, I would like to make a request. I'd like you to ask, or I'd like somebody to be able to ask Michelle Feely to determine if we will be safe based on size and number to meet in public. Thank you.
To meet in public or at the government?
At the Government Center.
You've all heard a sense of the request?
No,
there is a
no,
current
no.
request. There is a motion before.
No, there's a
No?
request.
There is a request before us. So before we move to Councilor Foster's request, we must vote on the request by Vice President McMenim, which, do we need a reminder of what that request is currently? Or are we all familiar with what that request is?
A list of the 29, whatever departments, either in person or by Zoom.
On that request, roll call is requested.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes,
Counselor Vidal.
Yes.
That request has been approved. Thank you very much, Vice President McMenim.
I have more.
Vice President McMenim.
Thank you. So I'm going to let Counselor LaFosse make his request when I finish, but the next thing I wanted to suggest was that over the years, having chaired this up until you came on board, Counselor McCarthy, we decided that the day after any city council meeting was just too long of a day for us all day. And that may change now if we're only going to do a few, but I found Thursdays to be of benefit. So, and it also fitted in with our calendar and time calendar. So I'm looking at Thursday. Well, let's back that up again. Sorry, I'm going to back that up because we have to have a cutting session, but I'll tell you what we did do. We're a little bit short this year. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. The way we did it, so the cutting session we had was actually done at 5 o'clock on the night of a full council meeting at 7:30. So we did the cutting session and then we had a special meeting called to approve the budget as a full council, so that when we went into the regular meeting, that budget was already taken care of. I'm just looking at the calendar and thinking to myself, we're kind of late this year, and tonight is the 18th of May. Next week is the 25th of May, which is Memorial Day. And if we get this recommendation back to the auditor, he could schedule the 28th of May for the major departments that we needed to get done. That would give us, I'm thinking out loud here, so when I finish, you can all jump in. But if we did the major departments on that day, the 28th, and then another day to do the other departments, then we will have reviewed all of the various departments in the budget. And from what the sounds of the mayor's presentation to us tonight, it's not going to be that hard because it's already pretty cut based on what she had to do. But if we pick the 28th for the main numbers and then went to another date, then on the night of the 8th, June 8th, we could have a 5:30 meeting for cutting, which we've not found many cuts before this, and then have a special meeting, or just before the full council meeting, we could have a special meeting at 7 o'clock or 7:15 or 7 o'clock to go approve the budget or approve whatever we're going to approve. How does that sound to you? I'll let that out for discussion.
If I may, before I call in any counselors, I believe in the previous years, I know we like to get it done before the final meeting, but I think we have run up against the clock in previous years. In the 2 previous years that I've been on this committee, the 28th, without having any hard books currently, and I know councils I've already seen emails floating and texts that councils are looking for actual hard copies. I personally think the 28th may be a quick turnaround, but at this time I will turn it over to committee members.
Just let me make one recommendation. If it's a quick turnaround, then maybe we do the not so heavy duty boards that day, the 12 of those of whatever, and get that out of the way and save the others for the next week. So I'll throw that out.
Anyone would like to comment on the comments from Madam Vice President?
Councilor LaCava, this is Councilor Vidal speaking.
Councilor Vidal.
So we're looking to do Thursday, May 28th as the suggested date for this meeting to take place, right? For all the big departments, I guess.
That has been a date thrown out, yes, or could
Okay.
be for the Zoom department and commissions as well.
Everything on one day. So we're gonna bang it all out on one day.
No, I believe it was a turn, and if that's too quick of a turnaround for a lot of the heavy duty lifting, these are departments that have smaller budgets that we could hopefully get our homework done in time by the 28th, I believe is what the dean said in response to my comments. Is that
Okay.
right, Madam Dean?
Correct.
Madam Vice President, thank you.
Do we know when we're gonna get the hard copies, budgets?
Mr. Senafani, are you able to estimate?
We can try to have those out to the council for this Thursday.
Okay. So
Hard
that'll give
copies.
us that'll give us the whole Memorial Day weekend to go over that stuff. All right. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm that date of the 28th. I think, so just to be clear, the 28th is the day in which we're gonna do Zoom meetings, or we're gonna do face-to-face.
Well, that is up for discussion at this point.
Okay.
If that's a date that people are able to agree upon, we can discuss on which items we would like to take forward on that day. But that also means we have to get our survey responded to by the clerk to the auditor's office. If it's out tomorrow, I would ask that everyone takes the time to respond to it tomorrow. If it's something online, I believe we would all be able to do that. I would say at latest Wednesday morning. I would like that to have those returned to the auditor's office.
All right. From my perspective, 28th is fine. If we're gonna spend all day doing this, we can definitely. I'm open that day, so I can definitely take care of that. I think 28th would probably be a good day to get all these face-to-face ones out of the way. I think with the bigger departments, and then the smaller departments are probably maybe doing the following day. I don't know. Do a Zoom meeting at night. Well, not at night, but like middle of the day or whatever might be the case. That would be a suggestion. And the other day, the cutting session on the 8th, I think that would be a good idea as well.
Okay, that's great to hear. I would, again, if anyone would like to comment on any comments on anything further that Councilor Vidal said, I personally would have trouble with the 29th being a Friday after a full day of face-to-face on Thursday. If we could push the Zooms off to another day, that would be great. The 28th
That's fine.
and
That's
8th
fine
work
too.
for
I
me.
think I just figured want to do back to back, but we can do it another day. But I think the bigger piece of the pie, I think, will be having the face-to-face on the 28th. I think that will be the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, I think.
I do agree with you that, Mr. Clerk, do we know if the school department has made available hard copies of their budget?
They've not sent those to me as yet, but I had informed them early on that the committee would probably like to see a hard copy version. Just to remind the committee, earlier this evening, I sent out an email to all city councilors with the city budget and the school department budget attached. So you already have an electronic version of the budget in your inbox.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Mr. LaFosse, were you raising your hand there or adjusting?
Justin, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Okay, so we've got some dates thrown out before us. The 28th. So I guess we got to take them individually if we're going to vote on them. So, Madam Vice President, would you like to make a
I'm
motion?
gonna make one, I'm gonna throw a little problem in here. So
Love curveballs.
myself. Our clerk will have this, our clerk will have this ready for us tomorrow. We'll get it by Wednesday, get it back with our choices of what departments we wish to do by Zoom and what departments we wish to do by in person. Now, if we did the smaller departments, let's say there's 10 of those on the 28th, whatever time is good for everybody, that would give us one more week of distancing until the following week, which is the 4th, that would give us one more week of distancing at home to do those committees by Zoom. And we could get them out of the way, whatever's good, morning or afternoon. I don't know who's working, who isn't working. I can make myself available all that day for whatever time, and maybe the clerk can give us an idea with all of those smaller committees put together, what the amount of time that takes, 4 or 5 hours, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, not even that. And then if we went to the June 4th, and we did the heavy duty committees that day, we now have another day under our, another week under our belt to be able to physically go to government center and social distance. And then if we finish the departments on the 4th, that actually gives us 2 weeks to have a cutting session. And you remember the last time we ended up having a third session because no, we did an all-dayer, and then we did 3 departments at night. We did the auditor, I think the city clerk, and the mayor. And that was quite a long event. So those are, I'm just throwing that out again to see what the committee feels. I mean, I'm really willing to do anything. I've been out, I've been all over with people, doing my thing, social distancing, mask. I walk every day, so I'm not worried about doing anything like this.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. So we have some dates thrown out. First being the 28th, then we're looking at the 4th. I would have to personally agree. I would like to do the Zooms earlier and give us time to really attack the budget and give us another week for those who are nervous about this staying safe and social distance, a few more weeks to understand data and the curve and whatnot. I see nothing wrong with pushing those face-to-face back another week in terms of safety of all. So with that, if we could take, if we would like to entertain some votes on dates of the 28th and the 4th for our 2 sessions, we could, I will entertain that.
I will make that motion unless the Vice President of the Council wishes to do so.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we do Zoom meetings on the 28th and in-person meetings on the 4th.
You've all heard a sense of that motion. A roll call is requested.
Could you just give me a time, a ballpark time?
Okay, very good point. What time in the past have these usually about 9 a.m. starts?
9 or 9:30, yeah.
9 or 9:30. Okay. Councilor Fossey.
Before we make that vote, are we still going to be able to, with my request from Michelle Feely, to see if we can do both in person?
We will get to that. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, roll call has been requested on the dates of the 28th and 4th for the 2 for budget hearings.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes.
Counselor Vidal.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those dates are approved. We didn't put a time on it. I mean, so we're saying 9 or 9:30. Is 9 okay for everyone? Is that doable?
I prefer 9:30.
9:30.
I like 9:30 because I gotta put my
9:30.
dog someplace. Yeah, 9:30.
9:30 on the 28th and the 4th. And then we were looking to do, are we looking to the budget cutting and the approval of the budget on the 8th, or just the cutting session?
So we could have, it's a full council meeting night.
It is.
I'm going to leave that up to we could do it either way. We could have the cutting session at 5 o'clock or 5:30, and a special city council meeting at 7 o'clock, which will, I mean, the others have taken all of 15 minutes, and then our full council meeting on June 8th at 7:30.
Yeah, so I will say in my two previous budgets, one, I think took a matter of 3 minutes to cut and approve the budget. And then the following one took about an hour and a half to do. So we aren't at this point sure which way it will go. I think being so diligent in getting this done fast in terms of getting to the 8th so quickly, we can, if we don't want to do both that night, we could push it off to the 22nd. Because in worst case scenario, if something ever happened, we do have another Monday where a special meeting could be called simply to approve the budget before the 30th, the date that the
So what would you recommend? Would you
I would recommend
on
the cutting
15th?
you want to
No, what would you recommend?
I would recommend we cut on the 8th and approve on the 15th before committee of the
Sounds
whole.
good. Yep.
So Vice President McMenim makes the motion to have our cutting session on the 8th and the budget approval on the 15th, both prior
So
to
we could meet for our cutting session at 6 o'clock.
at 6 o'clock. If the what is that? So that's committee. So that's council 7:30, an hour and a half, I believe, gives us ample time. So 6 o'clock on the 8th, and then on the 15th, an approval of the budget on a committee night at 8 o'clock. Would we like to call that for 7 or later?
So then it would be a special city council meeting
Mhm.
and council meeting, committee meetings start at all different times.
Oh, yes.
But
Call it for 8 as like the mayor did today and go roll right into committee of the whole.
we could do that. Yep, do that.
Okay, so you've all heard the sense of the motion. It is for the cutting session on the 8th at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock leaves us an hour and a half till 7:30 council, and at 8 o'clock before committee of the whole, the approval of the budget. Roll call is
8 o'clock, a
requested.
special city council meeting.
Special
on
city
June
council meeting.
15th.
Yes, Madam Vice
Just,
President.
sorry, the 8th, 6 p.m. budget cutting session, right? That's on.
Yes,
on
yes, sir,
Monday.
Council Vidal.
Yeah,
And then what was the other date and time?
the next week. June 15th, 8 o'clock, special city council meeting, budget approval.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Very nice work here with these. Thank you very much for all the input. And so we have a motion.
Are you
before
gonna take a vote on that?
Yes, we do. Roll call is requested.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes,
Counselor Vidal,
Yes.
That is approved. Thank you. Before we move off from this, we do have.
no, you have to go to Councilor LaFosse wants you to take up his issue.
Yes, thank you very much. Councilor Fossey.
Thank you. I would like to make the request to speak with Michelle Feely and have her determine that based on our size and numbers, if the auditorium at Government Center would be adequate to do all meetings face-to-face regarding the city budget.
You've all heard the sense of the request. So we would like to get her in on the 1st to speak of that for the 4th, or would you just like an answer?
I'd like her to be able to determine if it's deemed safe for us to do this.
Oh, fully understand. Would you like to request her attendance at the next finance committee meeting on doing it face to the 4th, or would you just like her to respond in writing for our finance committee on the 1st?
I think a response in writing would be sufficient.
And we'll have that request in writing for Mr. Senafani this evening.
I will.
You've all heard a sense of the request?
Roll call.
Roll call is requested.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes,
Counselor Vidal,
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Councilor Fossey. Anything further with that?
Nope.
All right. I guess the last item would be the questions, the predetermined questions that we would like to have sent out, being that we are hoping to have our Zoom meeting before our next finance meeting. Are we able to? I do not have the prior year's questions in front of me.
I think the auditor has them and
The
put them
auditor.
out to us,
yes.
right?
If those are emailed out, could we, again, with the response to the poll, respond with yes or no on if we'd like these questions to be moved forward. And then if,
Or if we want to add any more than what's there.
exactly.
Comprehensive.
That is it.
I'll make that motion to ask the auditor, to request the auditor to forward to us the questions that have been sent in the past to the budget, the Finance Committee budget hearing meetings.
You've all heard this sense of the request. Roll call is requested.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yes.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes,
Counselor Vidal,
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Safani, would you like that request in writing?
no, I've got it.
All right. Thank you all for your time, and this is obviously crazy. Being my first time doing budget as the chair, doing it over Zoom, and these dates are crazy. So I thank you for all helping me get through this tonight, and a special thanks to Mr. Senafani as always for guiding me through these fun times. Anything else before us currently?
if there are no other matters, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to 10:19 to adjourn.
Madam Vice President makes a motion to adjourn.
Counselor LaFosse,
Yeah.
Counselor Mackin,
Yes.
Counselor McMenim,
Yes.
Counselor Vidal.
Yes.
It is 10:19 and we are adjourned. Thank you very much all.
Thank you all.
Have a
Night.
good night, guys.
Night.
Good night, everyone.